Hello and welcome back, everybody. I'm Dalton Cowan, and this is my compost, some of it. Now, this particular pile, or rather this entire structure, is a 3-bay composting frame, I guess you would say. Each bay is approximately 5.5 feet in all directions, and the goal being to create a cube of compostable material that's at least 5 feet. The reason for that is that if you have a compost pile which is too small, there won't be enough activity, microbial and otherwise, to heat it up properly. But before we get too far into this video, if you don't know anything about composting, or if you just kind of haven't done it in a while and you just want to brush up on it or make sure that you're doing it as properly as possible, stick around. This video is for you. So, composting is actually really simple. As long as you have the adequate amount of hydration, oxygen, and you have the right ratios going on, everything should go great. People have differing opinions on this, but I prefer, when we talk about things that we put into the compost pile, typically those can be sorted into one of two categories, either brown material or green material. Now, with brown material, you can think about things like leaves, wood chips, newspaper, things like that. Anything that is really rich in carbon or really rich in cellulose. So that's kind of one side of it. The other side would be your green materials, fresh grass clippings, kitchen scraps, eggshells, coffee grounds. All of that stuff is going to be really rich in nitrogen, mostly. So the two things that we're really shooting for are lots of carbon, lots of nitrogen. And if you have a good ratio between those, it creates a good food source for all of the things that we want to attract, which are going to break it down into a lovely compost for us. So if you have a compost pile that's this size, it's properly hydrated, and you've got a good ratio of your green to brown material, you get what's known as aerobic composting, as contrasted with anaerobic composting, which is typically what I wind up with in my little composting barrel over there. Now, with the composting barrel, water seeps into the top. It's really hard to mix it. Things tend to sit in there and get soggy and get wet and stay that way. And when you have something that gets really wet and it's not mixed very frequently, that prevents oxygen from getting to it, which then allows for the growth of anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic means without oxygen, I think, or something like that. So anyway, anaerobic bacteria grow when oxygen is not present. So anyway, that tends to be a much slower process. It's also very stinky. It's just putrid. It's awful. This pile smells like a forest in the fall. It just smells like kind of like decaying leaves. It's a very pleasant smell, almost like tea or something like that. But anyway, I'll show you. Watch this. So this pile was made I've been adding to it a lot more, but started it about a month ago. And it wasn't just a couple of days before it started to really heat up. Now, compost pile, I'm pretty sure that they can reach temperatures in excess of like 180 degrees or something crazy like that. And people also use compost piles to, you can run like a irrigation pipe through it and pipe that into like a radiant baseboard system for your greenhouse, and people do all kinds of crazy stuff with their compost. But anyway, watch this. If we take our shovel, once again, that smells really good. It's nothing like the compost barrel that I have up front. You can see already, it's really starting to break back down, turn into a really rich hummus. And all of what probably looked like dust coming up was not dust, that was steam. I mean, if I stick my arm in there, it gets really hot really fast. Yeah, see, that's almost unbearable. If we get all the way to the middle of the pile, that's where it's going to be the hottest. So if you can imagine a circle with a bunch of concentric circles on the inside of it, at the very middle of the compost pile is where it's going to be the hottest. So moving forward from this, wow, that's really steaming. I don't know if you guys can see that. Kind of hard to tell in the video. But anyway, this can be left, but there's a good chance that a lot of it's going to go anaerobic on us if we do that. So the better thing to do would be to turn it somewhat regularly. People say you can turn them like once a week. I'm not turning all this material once a week. There's no way. I'd have to eat an extra 3 meals. But probably going to turn it again at some point. But the way that I've kind of set this up, so I had a lot more spent mushroom substrate than I thought I did. Plus I'm trying to put all the leaves from the yard into this pile. So these two are going to be 2 fresh piles. And then I'm probably going to turn one over into that third bay once it gets empty. It's just kind of a storage area for the spent blocks right now. The key points here are that if you want to compost, it needs oxygen so that it can not be stinky and that it's quite fast. You need to get your ratios right. It needs to be hydrated. That means wet, but not dripping wet, sopping wet. And it needs to be of an appropriate size. It needs to be at least, in my personal opinion, at least 4 feet. A 4-foot cube, if you could imagine. It needs to be easy to turn. That's why I've left one whole side open here. But, I mean, you could do this with pallets. We just happened to had some extra T-posts and some wire fence from when we built the coop out, so. But it's working really well. I would expect that, I mean, if I sift some out, I could probably use some now. But probably within, you know, by the end of summer or so, I expect that this will be reduced in volume by about half, and we'll sift out all the chunky stuff and sticks, and it'll either go into the garden or go into some of the raised beds or some of the pots up front. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot cheaper than buying potted soil or potting soil. So anyway, just a quick one. If you want to compost, go for it. It's fun. It's a good way to, you know, not put so much organic stuff into the garbage. I can't stand to do that. Anything that's like food, that's like leftover, that isn't moldy or anything, typically goes to the chickens, or the dogs will eat it. I mean, something around here is going to eat it. And then if it just doesn't have anywhere else to go, it goes into the compost, either into this pile or out into the barrel up front. Yeah, we try to reduce and reuse and recycle and all that good stuff. And if you can turn trash into treasure, why not do that?